U.S. Navy is pressing new ships into duty. There's the nearly $13 billion USS Gerald R. Ford, a new class of aircraft carrier entering service. And the dramatic launch of the new USS Sioux City recently. Both claim to have the latest technology for the Navy's global presence of late in the Strait of Hormuz in the Mideast and increasingly in the South China Sea. But we noticed one thing that hasn't changed for a half century. Ships go to sea painted battleship gray.
As a young boy, I had a poster from World War I that hung in my bedroom, and it showed a destroyer coming to the rescue of a merchant ship. And the destroyer was painted orange and blue and all kinds of different colors, and I thought, this is so ridiculous. They would never paint ships like that.
But that's exactly what they did. Jim Bruns is the director of the National Museum of the U.S. Navy in Washington, D.C. He tells the story of the art of war. In order to evade the German U-boats, the U.S. and British navies took a page out of the sketchpads of Picasso and the Cubists, hiding their ships in plain sight with paint.
You can't disguise a ship on the high seas. It's impossible to disguise it. You see it on the horizon. You'd be able to see it. It's giving off smoke. They're burning coal for many of these ships. You can't disguise them. You can't literally camouflage them. What you can do is distort them. And that's what the art and science of razzle dazzle is all about, is tricking the eye.
The Brits called it dazzle, the Americans razzle dazzle. On both sides of the Atlantic, the two navies transformed thousands of ships into floating works of art, like the RMS Olympic, a British luxury liner converted into a troop ship to transport Americans to the front lines.
You can clearly see the curve shape, which makes it look like it's in wave. Its stacks are painted so that the portion that would be greatest in the sun is now painted black.
And the USS West Mahomet.
By using vivid patterns and vivid colors, you break the image to a point where you don't know whether or not you're looking at the back, looking at the front, or how big the actual object is, because it's totally distorted.
The razzle-dazzled ships were stunning. One observer at the time called them a flock of seagoing Easter eggs.
Artistically, to me, they're phenomenally beautiful. Phosphorescent greens, vivid oranges, bright yellows, purples, reds, bold red, fire engine red, and it's almost like psychedelic art in the early 1900s. I would love to see this ship in honest-to-God color. So dramatic.
Razzle-dazzles arrived at a critical time for the war effort. By 1917, British morale was sinking as fast as its ships, with German U-boats torpedoing 1 out of every 4 vessels crossing the Atlantic.
This is a World War II era periscope, but you're basically limited to a viewing portal that's this big.
Facing zigzags and distorting colors, the U-boat captains struggled to target their torpedoes.
I mean, we know even from German statements that it was very hard to plan an attack on a razzle-dazzled vessel because you didn't know where the front was, you weren't sure where the back was, you weren't sure what angle it was sailing at, you weren't sure of its speed.
America escorted 18,000 vessels back and forth supporting the war effort.
We have just begun to fight. That is the slogan of the Navy of today.
The United States Navy never lost a vessel in convoy, and that was in part due to razzle-dazzle.
The National Museum of the U.S. Navy is open to the public. It's located in the middle of the Navy Yard in Washington, an active military installation. So if you visit, there's an extra layer of security to go through. There are plans to relocate it to a more public place. Next week, hospitals are for healing, but not all the time. Medical mistakes kill nearly 100,000 people every year in the U.S. Many of those medical mistakes are the result of doctors too tired and prone to error.
There is substantial evidence that residents who are sleep deprived, particularly first-year residents, make more medical errors. And those medical errors can lead to harms and even deaths to patients.
So we ask the question, why are some in the medical community pushing hard for doctors to work longer, more brutal shifts? Next week on Full Measure. Tomorrow's Memorial Day. It is the day we remember and honor those who've died fighting for America. began as Decoration Day after the Civil War, when ceremonies were still divided, North and South choosing different days to honor their fallen. Almost a century later, Memorial Day became a federal holiday. One nation united to honor our fallen heroes on the last Monday in May. We'll see you next week.